Strange indeed would be those people who are not moved or touched by the sounds of a musical instrument playing. And musical instruments have been present from more than 40 to 50,000 years. In fact, archaeologists have found remains of what could probably be a flute made from a bone, the bone of a raptor, which was found in southern Germany, a place called Hohle-Fels. And there are several other instruments dated to 30,000, 35,000, even 45,000 years ago. So these are the earliest suggestions that humans have been musical from a very, very long time ago. And the way they have classified instruments is very curious. It is dependent on both the physiology, the cultural preferences, as well as the ecosystem. So I will be briefly mentioning 3 different systems. We have been talking about Natyashastra, and Natyashastra will remain with us for some more time till we move on and come into more modern epochs. So Natyashastra has a particular classification of instruments, and the Chinese classification is quite different. Whereas the Natyashastra looks at instruments from the structure of the material and what is the vibrating medium. In the Chinese system, Ba Yin, that is based on the material itself, metal, silk, bamboo, and so forth. And we will also discuss the modern classification that is owed to Hornbostel-Sachs, if I am pronouncing it correctly. So these are the 3 systems, and we'll also try and illustrate using stock footage the categories themselves and what they mean. So in the Natyashastra, you have 4 types of instruments. One is those that are covered. Something that is covered, and so when you strike the surface, it vibrates, and that vibration produces the pleasant musical sound. So these are called avanadha. So typically instruments that are percussion in nature, percussive instruments, these are called avanadha. Then you have tata or tantu, which is a ductile material that is stretched, and when it is plucked, it produces sound. These are strings. So what you would call a stringed instrument, such as an ektantri veena, 1 string instrument, which is a classical instrument from early India. There is an iconographic evidence to the use of this instrument. And even today in places like Jharkhand, they have an instrument called toila, which is a single stringed instrument, but which is more like a folk instrument, but which uses the body as the resonator. So you have tata, vadya. Vadya is the instrument in Sanskrit. Then you have sushira. And then you have the 4th, which is ghana. Sushira is, instruments such as the flute, blown instruments, which depend on air vibrating, columns of air that vibrate and produce the musical sound. And ghana is material itself. Ghana means dense. So body in its dense state, when it is struck, it produces. And let me quickly draw a parallel with the Hornbostel-Sachs classification, which talks about idiophone. Idiophone is when a body is struck, it produces sound because of the vibrations that are natural to that body. So you will have, if you strike a piece of metal or a stone, or you have these, those that you amuse young children with, maracasi, for example, these are instruments that produce sounds by themselves, like idiophones. And even, for example, when you clap your hands or strike your thighs and chest, in fact, some animals do that too. So the body itself becomes the musical instrument there. So these are idiophones. Then you have the stringed instruments, which are called chordophones. Chord means a string, a stretched ductile material. And guitar and sitar and various stringed instruments, veena. Then you have the aerophones, where air in a compressed form, you compress air and it is played through a small, it vibrates within a small space. In some contexts it's called embouchure, and in the flute. So the vibrating air inside that particular column produces the musical notes. And of course, all these notes are, all these sounds are propagated through air. And so we have the idiophone, chordophone, aerophone, and then of course, what is covered, like membranophone. And membranes, when they vibrate, they produce the characteristic sound of many percussion instruments. So you have a direct comparison between the earliest classification that we see in the Natyashastra and the modern Hornbostel-Sachs classification. So they seem very, very alike in that they talk about sound that is being produced by the structure of the material and what is the vibrating medium. So let me put it as in that form, that it is a medium that is producing that sound. In the Chinese system, Ba Yin, Ba and is 8 and Yin is sound. So they have a system of 8 sounds. Of course, I have no direct exposure to Chinese music. So much of the material I have drawn from a very informative video produced by the Center for Chinese Music and Culture at Middle Tennessee State University. And the presenter is Dr. Mei Han, who is the director of this center. So much of the material, as I said, those who are interested can actually go and take a look at this. It's a very beautifully done video, and I'd like to acknowledge that. But just so as to give a comparison to the other kinds of musical instrument classification that we have seen, the 2 others that we have seen, this would give us a contrasting picture. So you see that in the Chinese system, and this system was, according to Dr. Mehan, somewhere between the 12th and 8th century BC, this classification is supposed to have. So what is being done here is it is the material that is important as a source of the music. So Ba Yin, as I said, Ba is 8 and Yin is sounds. The number 8 seems to be very important in the Chinese culture. So there are 8 book of changes. The book of changes is based on 8 trigrams, 8 directions, 8 phenomena, and even in modern China, 8 is considered one of the luckiest numbers. So you see a cultural background to this number 8 and why 8 materials have been chosen. So when you look at modern day classification as well as the Natyashastra, you see the medium, which is 4 media that they are being discussed. Here, different materials that produce this. So these are stone, the hanging pieces of limestone, jade, marble, shaped in such a way that they strike against one another. You have seen those columns which are closely hanging together, so they strike one another and produce a very soothing kind of sound. So these are chimes made of stone. Then you have bamboo, you have transverse and end-blown flutes. You have silk, which is used in many of the Chinese stringed instruments. Gourd, which is used to produce whistle-like sounds and as a mouth organ. Then you have metal, cymbals, then you have the gongs. And drums, bronze bells. You also have clay, small earthen vessels, which are flutes or which could be whistles. And small piece of pottery is involved here. You have skin, of course, a wide variety of skin that we have seen in many other cultures for drums and other percussion instruments. You have wood, and wood again that is being struck to produce both percussion as well as sometimes a pitch. Clappers, castanets, all these are made from wood. And so these are the basic 8 instruments. So this is the first part of today's video. In the second part, I am very happy to respond to a detailed feedback I've had on the previous video, which we named a noteworthy point.